you're on.
I'm on.
Marcy Playground is the self-titled debut studio album by American alternative rock band Marcy Playground.
Sigh.
Shut up. It was released on February 25th, 1997 on EMI. It was reissued later that year on October 7th on Capitol Records with a large amount of promotion for the single Sex and Candy, which became the band's breakthrough single, spending more than 15 weeks at number one on the Billboard Modern Rock Tracks chart. My God, what a success. It garnered a mixed reception from music critics. James P. Wisdom, you must know what he's talking about, Brad. James P. Wisdom of Pitchfork stated that Marcy Playground was the most soothingly mellow and pleasant thing he had heard in a long time. Wow. Dan Weiss of LA Weekly deemed it the 12th worst album of the 1990s. Opining that aside from the singles Sex and Candy and St. Joe on the School Bus, the album is folksy, opiate-obsessed bullshit. Well, that was pretty succinct of him. Yeah. So, Brad, this is your album. Greatest album ever made. You love it. You'd marry it if it was a human being. Tell me about it. Tell me about it.
I'm amazed it was 97. I didn't realize it was that late. I thought it was like 94 or 95. But 97, I'm okay with it. Yeah, I enjoy this album. I chose this album. And I chose it because when I first heard it and it was introduced to me, I knew that, everybody knows Sex and Candy. And we'll get into that a little later on. But that was the only song I knew. And this guy was like, you go check out this album. It's got more than just that song. So I was like, yeah, whatever. I'll check it out. This is when I was in the States. And I dug it. It's cool. I like it. Got into it. And I'm I don't know what you call yourself, a Marcyite, a playgroundie. I don't know what if you're a fan of the band. A Marcyophile, that's it.
Yeah.
A playground Marcyophile. I don't know if that has a very good ring to it. But yeah,
what's wrong with that?
Their second album, their third album, I dig it all. Look, they've got songs that don't work, and there are fine examples of them on this record. But overall, I like their nerd rock sound. I think it's just solid guitar, bass, drums, simple stuff. I dig it. You, I'm assuming, had never heard this album before in your life. What did you think?
I knew the song Sex and Candy. I hadn't heard the album or any of the other songs, or I don't know anything else they've done except for Sex and Candy. Like I said, it's 15 weeks at number one. This was a song that got bashed to death when it came out. Like, it was just over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a song that, quite frankly, I got bored of, but thought it was a good song to begin with. And re-listening to it now, it's a good song. It's great.
Yeah.
It's a good song. I was interested to hear that you call it nerd rock. You think it's nerd rock?
Did I say that? Yeah, I guess because his voice, he's kind of like a, it just seems like he likes computer games and awkward to talk to girls and stuff. It's got like a kind of a nasally whine to it.
I was thinking more like stoner.
Oh yeah,
folk.
Yeah. Sure.
Because
stoner folk.
He said,
I like it.
Sex and Candy. He wrote that the title came from that he was having sex with a girl, and her roommate came in and said, "Oh, this room smells like sex and candy," and they were trying to hide the fact that they were having sex. So the fact that he's having sex, I think that throws his nerd credentials right out the door.
Well, you've hit the nail on the head. Absolutely.
Yeah, stoner. Because he had big drug problems, from what I understand.
Oh, all right.
You didn't know about that?
To me, your backstory there. You've done your research about, he got the title off somebody coming into the room and smelling the room. It's just going to smell like man sweat, lube, and I don't know, marijuana, right? What would Sex and Candy smell like to you, my friend?
Yeah, don't you? There's that smell, though, isn't there? There's there's that semen smell, isn't there, Brad?
We all know.
I don't want to be gross.
There's a musky aroma to it. Sure, I wouldn't know. I've never been there. I'm a 40-year-old virgin. So
I worked at a place once, and there was this woman that possibly did not like to shower, and she would come in, and everyone would go, "Oh God, she's just done it, hasn't she?" We'd go, "Oh God."
Maybe she'd just gone for a run.
She was a very large lady, and what she used to do is
out of the question.
She had a very big stomach, and what she would do is lift her meat apron up and hang it on the side of the table and rest. It smelled like sex.
I think you need to trademark the term meat apron. Meat apron.
That's what you call it, isn't it? It was just like a big, flabby, meaty stomach. Just pick it up.
Oh yeah, no. I think you don't need.
Table.
There, no more explanation needed. Meat apron is the perfect. And we're not shaming anybody that has a meat apron. We're just merely describing a piece of anatomy as best we can. Correct?
I think we're embracing the meat apron, aren't we? Like
that's right. I think we've named it and we've now put it out there in the community, and it can now be spoken about without shame or regret.
It's a celebration of just the body, celebration of the body. That's what I would call it.
That's right. And what smells it can create.
And you can have a meat apron and still have lots of sex and go to work without showering. That's a beautiful thing.
That's debatable. But yes, back to the back to the music. So going, you go in, Sex and Candy, right? And then you chuck on track one, and what's your initial reaction? You're like, this is what I was expecting for the other tracks, or where did you find yourself?
I was finding myself in a fairly similar position to our review of Neon Ballroom Silverchair. Except I like this a lot more actually. When Poppies came on, I was like, this is good. Like it's upbeat. It's kind of it's a rock song. It had a weird guitar sound. Yeah. And looking later on, it's an acoustic guitar just with distortion on it.
Yeah.
So it's not like a real thick electric guitar sound. But it's a catchy song. It's fast. It's upbeat. It's not a cheesy pop song. It's like a really cool pop song, really indie rock pop song. And I was like, wow, this is great. Sex and Candy came on. I was like, fantastic. Like this is, I've forgotten how good of a song it is because, it'd been beaten to death. And then it carried on. I think it's a solid album. All the songs are good. Like I can't complain about any of the songs. I get to Opium. Opium, I was in it again. I was like, this is a really, really good song. It's
great
too
song.
short. Like it could go for a long time and be built. And I would have loved for that to have a big psychedelic solo.
But I think,
that's a little short for me, but it's great.
Yeah. You're right. Opium was one of the ones that were, the guy that recommended the album was like, oh man, you're going to love Opium. And like, I listened to it. And it's just that real dirgy sort of guitar and then a good build to the chorus. And again, it's just a simple, grunge rock or stoner rock or whatever you want to call it. But it's got good feel, right? And it's the same thing. I thought this track rules, and I'd play it over and over again because, like you said, I wanted it to be longer. But I guess that's a sign of a good song, really. You don't want to overstay your welcome and then not have repeat listens.
Yep.
But there's definitely, for me, like some great tracks. Like for me, Sherry Fraser and Opium and Vampires in New York. You know, those are songs I'll come back to. Those, you know, I chuck those on mixtapes, that kind of stuff. But then on the album, I find there's some shitters too, like Cloak and Robe of Alvin or whatever it's called. That one, that's an easy pass. And then the one about I forget what it's called later in the album, but it's like all the little Indians in a row or something. Do you know the one I'm talking about?
There's One More Suicide, Dog and His Master, The Shadow of Seattle.
I think it's Dog and His Master, maybe. Yeah. Anyway,
sure.
So there's you know, on an album that you can tell it's a debut album, they had the songs that were real bangers, and then there's a couple that they obviously had to fill their, you know, their song quota for their release. But overall, yeah, it's a banger.
I sort of different feelings in that I thought standouts for me, really good songs, Poppy, Sex and Candy, and One More Suicide.
Mm.
I was interested in Vampires of New York for sort of a different reason. But like all the other songs apart from those three are good. I can't find anything wrong with them. Each song I kind of found quite solid and really good. But on repeated listens, they kind of went, there's nothing wrong with them, but then there's nothing great about them. And I kind of felt like I could skip this shit. But then it's not a bad song. It's just I've gotten so much of the same thing over and over again.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, they've definitely got, there's the Marcy Playground sound that, you know, it definitely develops over the course of, they got 1, 2, 3, 4 full albums, right? And they don't all, it's not the same sound, like they definitely, but it's within the same sort of style. Like there's the Marcy Playground thing, but they you know, they mix it up a bit, but it's always their thing. Like the second album's more punky and there's a lot more fast songs, a lot more songs like Poppies. It's really terribly produced, so it's real harsh. And then here's this one, their album that came out in 2003, let's say 2003, it's their third album, and they called it MP3. Right? Do you remember those things?
I'm looking on Wikipedia now. I see MP3 2004. I haven't got never knew it came out. Song was featured on Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back.
Yeah, it's Deadly Handsome I think Man. That's a killer album, actually. Like it's got some real good tracks on it. And then the one after that again was Leaving Wonderland in a Fit of Rage. That's actually really good too. I mean, like the songwriting gets better from the guy. Like, as you say, the first album, Sex and Candy, was the obvious. I think that's a classic song. You know, you can't deny it. Chord changes, melody. It's a banger. You know, it's in the universe as one of those. I mean, they're a one-hit wonder band, and that's their one hit, and I think for good reason. The rest of the album, repeated listens doesn't really do it for you. But then I think as they move through their career, repeated listens reward the listener.
So the main guy, John Wozniak, does he write all the songs pretty much?
Yeah, he's the guy.
Yeah. So he was talking about the fact that they had a big hit, life turned upside down. You know, all the stuff happens with having a big hit and big tours and stuff. And then he said, I never wanted to have a hit again after that. He ended up taking the money from this and buying a recording studio and just becoming a producer for bands he liked. And then he's just putting out albums and probably not producing it, probably doing it independently, is he? And not really pushing.
So they do it all themselves, their own record label. And again, I struggled to find. So that the third album, MP3, came out when I was in the States. So what year did you say that was? 2004. And so the guy that showed me their first album, conveniently, this third one just came out, and I was like, oh, wicked, I'll grab that too. And that was the soundtrack of the summer, really. But then when I only knew their fourth album came out because I was following them on Facebook. was just like no, it wasn't Facebook. It was MySpace back in those days. And wow, the ancient past. And they announced it, and I was like, oh, it was hard to find. I think I had to order it online. But their last album's fantastic.
Says here on the MP3 album you're talking about, there's a track called Hotter Than the Sun, where Wozniak reflects on the band's one-time success and remains positive about the band's future. Yeah.
Well, when you think about it, he's got so much money from Sex and Candy, right? Like the checks just keep rolling in. It's a song that's a staple of modern rock radio, right? It's at any point, any day, how many stations are going to play Sex and Candy, right? It's just one of those songs. So what they did, they pulled a Def Leppard, right? And they re-recorded Sex and Candy only a couple of years ago and put it out on Spotify with the hopes that people would put that in and listen to that and they'd get more royalties instead of the old record company. Yeah. But they fucked it up and they recorded it really badly and there's clipping everywhere and his voice is too loud. And it shows that even if you have a great song, if you don't record it right, it's not going to be a hit.
And he was making living as a producer and he made this shitty recording song. It's not a great advertisement for his day job, is it?
It's not. Yep. They put it out on an album of sort of outtakes and rarities. And I thought, oh, great. A new version of Sex and Candy. This is going to be, oh, no, I'm never listening to that again. And it was like versions of him singing Hallelujah and other covers. And it just wasn't good by any means. But yeah, Def Leppard did that. They re-recorded all the hits off Hysteria and tried to make the money with, bypassing the old, and it's a good idea, but it's just, it never sounds right. And isn't told, Taylor Swift, she's doing it as well at the moment, re-recording all her albums.
For people who don't know, someone else owns the masters. Someone owns the publishing of the song. So they're getting all the royalties from the artist.
Well, not all of it.
Artists,
chunk of it.
Big chunk of it. So the artists go out, re-record the songs and hope you listen to their new version of it where they own the recording and therefore they're getting the bulk of the money that way. Did it work for Def Leppard? Do you know?
Nah, it just, like anything, even if it's not the same. It's obviously, there's magic that happens in these classic albums, right? And it's that point in time and how it was recorded and how that mix was done, that gets into your subconscious. Mm-hmm. When you hear a song 8,000 times, like Pour Some Sugar on Me, you hear it everywhere from the petrol station to the strip club. It's just, it gets in your mind. So when they re-record it and, the frequencies aren't exactly the same, it's like watching CGI in a movie. Your brain just goes, no, no, give me the other one.
Yeah, it's like 20 years later, your voice is just different now. It's deepened and you're singing it and it's not the song. And it's probably Uncanny Valley where it's almost but not quite. And you're like,
That's right. That's right. Oh, well, it's even with, done wrong. You know how all the classic albums are now getting remixed and re-released. They're doing it with the Beatles, but so the A+ version is all the remixes of the Beatles' later albums. They've done the White Album, they did Sgt. Pepper, they've just put out Let It Be, where, what's his name, Martin's son, so Glenn Martin, I forget his name.
George Martin's son,
whatever his name is remixing all the Beatles tracks, right, from the masters. But what they do right is they keep like the sonic tones the same, and they just sort of mix with clarity and that sort of thing. And then so it's essentially the same mix, cleaner and pure, and it sounds amazing, right? Beatles fans love it. But what's happened, like a prime example of where it goes wrong, and it's the same thing, your brain doesn't accept that. The Doors, they remixed and remastered all their albums, right? And they changed the levels and they made Jim Morrison's vocals be way louder and, changed distortions on guitars and stuff. and it does not sound as good. Like for me, my brain, as I said, rejects it. And you think something as simple as the mix of a song changes it from being a classic, but this is fantastic, I want to crank this in my car, to, oh no, that doesn't sound quite right. That song doesn't have the same energy almost, it doesn't have the same, something doesn't grab you.
Yeah. I know Pearl Jam did it with 10, and basically they got rid of all the excess reverb.
Yeah.
Because you can barely hear what the guitars are doing in the original.
And you'd have to admit that that's an improvement. When I listen to 10 now, I listen to the redone one because it's so much clearer and better.
Yeah, that's the thing is they've got a real reason to do it. And a lot of the time they don't have a reason to do it other than it's a marketing campaign to get you to buy the same thing twice.
Buy the same record for the fifth time.
Yeah. Yeah. Or they're just fucking it up.
Like you got to do something with it, I guess. Yeah. What are we talking about? Marcy Playground. That's right.
A band so interesting, we wavered for 10 minutes and talked about something else.
Hey, we're allowed to go the Billy Connolly route and disappear and come back again. Oh yeah, look, I'll still chuck this. I'll chuck this album on, sporadically. Marcy Playground, the band in general, comes up on my shuffle all the time. It's just they're one of those bands that I got right into for a while, so they're always going to float around. Like this album, I think Sherry Fraser's, I think it's a pretty classic song for a G, C, and D kind of song. And Vampires of New York, you said you liked it for a different reason. What was that? Did it lyrically appeal or something?
Yeah, I mean, we're not from America, but we've been to America. We've both spent time in New York. And, you always hear about the vampires of New York. You always hear about the drug situation and the crime and dirty things and weird situations going on. So I was listening to Vampires in New York in that context, but then in the time I was in New York, which was just pre-COVID, really, a few months before COVID happened, New York was lovely. Like I didn't see anything strange, out of place, weird, or creepy at all. Unlike some other cities, I could point my finger at San Francisco, where some freaking weird shit's happening. Yeah.
Well, when were you there? That was 2018, something like that, eh?
Just before COVID, so like
2019. Just to date this, if somebody's listening 30 years from now.
2019. Yeah, something like that. Just a few months before COVID broke out, was basically got back and then heard about it. And it was wonderful. It was great. Super expensive city to live in, like renting stuff. But getting on the subway and traveling up and down was so easy, and just didn't see anything at all. And like I said, San Francisco, you walk into a family restaurant and there was a guy masturbating in the corner, and like just the whole restaurant ignoring it.
What was the restaurant called? Slapping Hams or something?
Subway. It was close enough. Subway sandwiches.
Somebody, I'll take a 6-inch. Thanks very much.
He was. Oh yeah, man. It was. I don't know. He didn't have a 6-inch sub. I'll tell you that. But
all right,
he was working the gherkin.
It's just the entertainment in San Francisco, mate. It's just that's how they busk.
People walking around with needles hanging out of their pants. They were watching a guy take a whiz in the street, and they got an app where you got to report poop and stuff. People have pooped in the street and stuff.
The San Fran poo app.
At night, when you go outside around the hotel, it was really nice during the day, and then at night you go outside and it's like you're in the middle of a war zone in Beirut. Like all the drums come out and they're on fire, and the homeless just flood in, set up camps down the streets. But New York was lovely,
huh? Yeah. Well, I was there 2003, 2004. And I don't remember it being dark. I remember there were areas you'd go and you'd feel mildly uncomfortable, but it was nothing. I wasn't exposed I mean, it's definitely there, but the mass drug culture or anything, and Central Park, all good times. But again, I was only hanging out there in the day. I wasn't going cruising around at 3 a.m. looking for trouble. But you can definitely, the history has shown it's got a pretty seedy underbelly, and this cat, Wozniak was obviously picked up enough on it to ride a track. But what I like about Vampires of New York is, again, it's those simple chords. It's fucking G and F, and maybe there's a C in there somewhere. But it's almost like, and he said it in interviews, the album's real childlike, real simple. The lyrics are all real, almost nursery rhyme kind of things.
Yeah.
But then with that, as you say, that kind of stoner rock and nursery rhymes. I remember reading interviews when I first got into them. He said, "Oh, this first album's all, this is all primary school stuff. This is my life through primary school." And then as they got
first songs he was learning to write.
Yeah.
He just learned how to write songs. He was putting together the simple stuff.
Yeah. But I think, to they're pretty clean, nice melodies, I reckon. And most of the lyrics that he's throwing in suit it. So I think that's why it appeals. Again, simple lyrics, simple themes. Yeah. And it's all, like Sherry Fraser, I love this girl. Where have you gone when you're coming back? Sex and candy, I guess, is probably the only vague metaphor he's throwing in there. But it's, I like it. I like how simple it is.
Yeah. I think that was probably the problem for me, though, is like he's got 3 bangers, 3 awesome songs, but then the rest are just, it's not a bad song. It's not a bad melody. It's just not super interesting. Yeah.
It's not they're not all complete earworms. Did you check out any like live footage of them at the time when they were doing Sex and Candy on Letterman and everywhere? He just looks like a scared deer in the headlights, doesn't he?
I watched one live performance and looked fine. Fine, actually. Big audience. He was jumping around, just had his acoustic, stuck his effects on. It was great.
Yeah, all right.
The recording itself, I don't think it's a terrible recording. It's a little like dull. Like it could be a little more vibrant, a little more highs or something in places. Like it's, cheap microphones in a cheap space. But it's not a terrible recording. It's all fine. It's just nitpicking at that stage.
On the re-listen for this, I'd never really noticed it before, but there's some killer bass lines in there, man. The bass player's he's doing some work there.
Yeah, I didn't really notice the bass player.
Next time in the future. You know who this band, Marcy Playground, if they went to make them think, if you want to think, okay, if they got more technical ability and got better lyrical themes and stuff, I'd start thinking Grant Lee Buffalo. Do you remember that guy?
Yeah.
That Mockingbird song and stuff. And I think that's a pretty good companion piece to Marcy Playground. It's similar sort of stoner rock, but I think Grant Lee Buffalo was, no disrespect to Wozniak, but Grant Lee's just a fantastic songwriter.
Right. Well, it's 12 songs. It's 34 minutes. Doesn't take long, but I still found myself getting bored and just like get to the good
songs. Yeah. All right. What's your how many are you skipping? You only got 3 you liked, so you're skipping a lot.
I'd say am I epic, decent, borderline, and filler. I've got, I'd call 3 epics. Right. And the rest of them, I struggle. Like, they're decent, but I'd also skip any of them.
Yep. Depending on the day. Yep. Bang. Yeah, I agree. What were your 3 epics?
Poppy, Sex and Candy, and Opium.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I agree.
And then the rest, it's fine. Like I could listen to a couple at a time, but even at 34 minutes, I was getting a bit over it. Yeah. And not the fault of the song I was listening to at the time. It's just the overall altogether. It's another one.
Yeah.
About the same.
Does this experiment intrigue you enough to check out any of their other albums?
Yeah, sure. I watched the live performance and there was a bunch of songs I'd never heard and they were quite good.
Yeah.
I'm not trying. I find a way to say I'm probably gonna not give it a high rating, but then I don't find anything wrong with it either. It's just a little uninspiring. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. But I mean, and that's exactly what happened. They put this album out, you said 97, went nowhere, just where are they from? Fucking New Yorkish, somewhere there. Put out an album, might have done something on college radio, and that's probably where Sex and Candy kicked in, because all the hipster college kids were like, oh, the song said sex in the lyrics. Sex and Candy, what's Sex and Candy? And so that was what created the hit single. They re-released it, but still it was that one song, and then they essentially disappeared,
Well, he started in Minneapolis and he moved to New York and he met the others.
All right, that makes sense. That makes sense. Someone for me,
you've got it, kid. And he moved to New York to make his dreams come true.
I've heard that song you wrote. Heard that song you wrote about the candy and the sex. You're gonna make it, son.
You're gonna make it, son. Yeah, and he did. God bless him.
And he did once.
And he also turned down major sponsorship deals, like endorsements. Like M&M's and Coca-Cola, was it, offered him money? Oh no, was it Microsoft? Yeah, two big companies like that wanted to use Sex and Candy, and he turned the money down. Just went and led a simple life, recording songs in his little studio he bought.
Yeah. They're still playing now. I just got an ad pop up on my feed for they're just doing some shows again around the States. Same three dudes just plugging away, still singing Sex and Candy every night as an encore. I wonder how much he hates it, or whether he loves the money bags that keep coming in his mailbox.
Probably loves the money bags and just like, yeah, get it. Yep, fine.
Yep, fine. I'll buy another mansion.
If he's turning down that stuff, I think he's got enough that he's like, I've got enough and that's fine, and I don't need more, and I'm not going to be a whore, and I'll just do what I want to do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's it. He puts out an album every bloody 10 years.
Yeah, bless his little heart.
Bless his little heart.
So Cat's Meows, out of 10 Cat's Meows, what are you going to give this son of a bitch?
This son of a bitch, it's again, I picked it because it's an album that I still enjoy and consider a classic. I would give it, even again, as you say, there's great bangers and then there's a lot of dull stuff. But I'm still giving it 8. 8 out of 10. I think it's not the perfect album, but it's one that I keep coming back to.
Ooh, I was going to give it 5 Cat's Meows. To me, it's like buy the songs on Apple, buy the 3 songs on Apple, and you can kind of forget the rest. You're not missing anything. If you don't want to spend full whack on an album, it's free on Spotify, so
stream that.
What the hell doesn't hurt you, really, does it?
All right, for those that are listening, when you stream Sex and Candy, make sure it's the original one. You'll know, because the new one sounds like shit. And with that, good night, everybody.
Thanks for listening to Pointless and Confused. We believe there's a little thing where you can send a tip if you want. We have no idea how it works.
We need cash.
Yeah, for whores.
And Vegemite.
Yeah. And what
Good day.
No, I've got to tell them the other thing.
Oh, what was the other thing?
Subscription.
Look, you could subscribe if you want to hear the sound of our sweet, sweet voices in your ear. Whenever a new episode drops, you'll be the first to know.
Yeah, we're not sure how you do that either, but you'll figure it out.
We're new to this. Come on, you guys.